sometimes it's going to take more than, any other time, but you're going to get through it, right? Like this too shall pass. So that's kind of something I've always been able to push through things. Maybe you're kind of in the quicksand swimming around a little bit, but you figure a way out.
Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. What an epic week we've had here. And with an epic week, you need an epic guest. And I would rather have nobody else than Jeremy Slate, all the way from New Jersey. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, brother, I'm doing awesome. How about yourself, man?
Man, I'll tell you what, it's been a great week, a lot of good stuff going on. And I just see you, man. I can't keep up with you. I see you on Facebook. I see you on LinkedIn. I see you everywhere. And I'm like, man, this dude's on fire. And I got to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I admire the work you do. And I really look up to you because you kind of, as a seasoned podcaster, I just see what you're doing, your consistency. And there's times that I'm like, man, this guy is awesome. And so you're inspiring me. I said, like, who do I want to role model with my podcast, right? And I just want you to know, man, from my heart, it's you, dude.
I would have thought you would have said Sean Douglas. Come on, man.
But Sean Douglas is good. Sean Douglas is a good friend. It's just good stuff, man. I just see you putting a lot of live content on there right now. But before we get started, man, before we dive any deeper, man, I know who you are, but if you don't mind introducing yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show and let them know, who is Jeremy Slate, man?
Yeah, so I have a top 100 podcast called Create Your Own Life. We've interviewed almost 800 incredible world changers. I have a company called Command Your Brand where we help people appear as guests on top-rated podcasts with a really great PR strategy behind it. I am a husband. I am a father of almost a 2-year-old who is a little out of control and a little fun. I have 2 dogs. I have a miniature pig, and I love working on cars.
Did you say a miniature pig?
I have a miniature pig.
What's your pig's name?
Sir Remington.
Sir Remington.
Well, my wife thought that if we got a pig, it needed to have an Old English name. So she was going with Sir Wellington or Sir Remington. And she remembered that she had a duck way back named Sir Wellington. So she decided she couldn't have 2.
Man, every month back in the day when I was little, there was a little, I guess kind of like a Fiesta, Texas Six Flags resort, but it was called Aquarina Springs in San Marcos, about an hour from here. Mm-hmm. But they had Ralph the swimming pig, dude. And I remember I'd be like in first grade. And I'd love to go out there and see Ralph.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. What a small world, right? Sir Wellington. I'm gonna think of that now. I'm gonna think of you when I see a baby pig now, brother.
Oh, he's no baby anymore, man. He's about 75 pounds of handsome, but that's about it.
Man, what made you get a pig? I'm just curious.
My wife always wanted one. So for our first wedding anniversary, like 4 years ago, I'm like, all right, I will get you a pig. So we drove from New Jersey all the way up to Hartford, Connecticut, because apparently that's where you go to get pigs, and came back with a pig.
Wow, man. Well, I'll tell you what, man. Let's dive into it. So Command Your Brand, where did that name come from for your business, for your company out there? I love it because it's giving boldness right away. Command Your Brand. You gotta take just charge of it. Where'd you get that name from?
So the original name of what we did was called Get Featured, and we ended up separating with the co-founder and had to come up with a new name. And believe it or not, I got to give credit to my mother-in-law on this one because she actually came up with the name Command Your Brand. I'm like, ooh, I like that. The unfortunate thing I didn't do is a little bit of research beforehand to find out, like, who owned the URL. So, later on, I had to do some negotiating and everything to get it, at the price I wanted it at. But yeah, that's where the name came from.
That's awesome, man. So you help podcasters all over the world just kind of get booked on different shows?
So about 80% of our clients either have a podcast or start one after they come to us, or it's just a lot of, people that are looking to get out there and get their message out there and make a big impact. So we have clients all over the US. We have a client in India right now, a few in Europe. So, we're definitely serving a planetary audience.
Man, well, awesome. Well, you kind of helped me do some homework. And so I saw it was perfect, right? I saw your post. And I'm like, man, well, I was going to do some more research on you and dive deeper, but I'm looking at everything. 13 years ago, you almost died. And yes. When I read that, I was like, holy crap, right? I'm like, dude, like you did that, right? So talk to us about that. What happened 13 years ago, man?
I wish it was a better story, honestly. I was playing football, and I'm in my 5-yard back pedal playing cornerback, and I go to turn and run with the receiver. My body keeps turning, my foot does not. because it's stuck in a drain. I tore my ACL, PCL, and meniscus. And basically, I couldn't stand up. It hurts. It hurt so bad that the nerves just kind of shut off, and I couldn't feel anything. So I go to the doctor. I find out, I have this injury, and they're like, "All right, we're going to do." It's called cadaver surgery. Basically, they take a ligament out of somebody that's already passed on. They put the graft in your body, and your body accepts it and heals. So that part of the surgery was fine. Like, it went great. It went well. But the anesthesia is what they use to like put you to sleep, so they're able to operate on you, because you'd be squirming like a mofo, man, if they were trying to operate on you when you were awake. So what happens is your lungs actually branch off into two what are called bronchioles. You have a right lung and a left lung. And the breathing tube's supposed to go between them. What they did is they actually shoved it all the way down into my right lung, so it overexpanded. My left lung collapsed. And because of that, my pulmonary system was going nuts. Like, they couldn't keep my blood oxygen level up. My heart rhythm was irregular. So everything was just kind of messed up. And I spent 3 or 4 days, like, just going in and out of consciousness. And they actually brought in a priest to give me last rites, because they told my parents, like, we don't know what's wrong with him, because if we tell you, you'll sue us. So, I didn't find out so much later what happened.
Yeah.
But, it was a scary, scary experience, man. But the crazy part is it didn't change my life. Like, it changed nothing about my viewpoint, and, nothing what I'm currently doing now actually changed until almost losing my mom, 5 years later than that. So that was the experience that actually made me look at life a lot differently.
Wow, man. So you've had some challenges in that. I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think right now, we were kind of just joking a little bit right now about you being in Jersey and the whole governor, right, shutting everything down. But the whole world's going through adversity right now. And I think I love just the way you're starting off, because we need to realize that, hey, it's what we do with what happens to us.
Yeah. No, life isn't what happens to you, man. It's what you do with it. I feel like so many people are like, oh, this stuff just happens to me. It's like, then find your cause point, man. Do something about it. And I feel like a lot of people just complain rather than doing something.
So what did you learn about yourself? Let's stay on this. When you got your last rites read to you, what did you learn about yourself at that time?
I didn't learn anything there. I didn't learn anything until, like I said, almost losing my mom. Like, that made me realize, like, I was teaching high school for a couple of years at that point. Like, was I happy? Why was I doing this? What was my purpose? What was the impact I was going to make? And I don't know. I don't know if it's a selfish thing or what, but like, when you're, 19 years old and, like, kind of feels like you got the world by the cojones, like, nothing can kind of knock you down, right? And it's like, when it becomes something outside of yourself, it makes you look at things a lot differently. And when it was a parent, like, it really hit me hard, man. Like, it really shocked my system. And I think because of that, that's what really, changed how I was looking at things and changed everything I'm doing. And that's the reason I think bigger. That's the reason I go for, what we're going for. That's the reason I talk to a lot of people I talk to. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be on the path I'm on now. Yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing with that. So when your mom was diagnosed with breast cancer? I think
No. My mom had a stroke.
She had a stroke.
And actually, I was working at the gym that day. I was working out, and then I got called to come into work early, which means I had to go home, take a shower, do all that kind of stuff. And I actually came home and ended up finding her on the floor. And she'd been there for about a half an hour or so. And like, for stroke, like, your timelines are short, man. So like, you got to be there within 45 minutes. And, luckily I called 911, got the ambulance there and everything else, and they were able to save her life. But she spent 3 months in a coma, a lot of time in a nursing home getting therapy and stuff like that. And, now she has something called acute global aphasia, which means that you understand everything that's going on around you. You can take information in, but you can't get that information out. Like, you can't, like, I can hear what Daniel's saying, but I can't answer Daniel, even because my brain can't get the words and the language straight. Yeah. So like, it's a really weird situation to be in. She also can't use the right side of her body. But, the beautiful thing about it is I still had my mom at my wedding. I still had my mom for my first child. She comes over 3 times a week and helps us with the baby, which is really great. So, there's still, that I'm getting out of it. And I think you have to look at the positive in everything.
Yeah, man. So that was, I guess, your wake up call, like you said. So what did you learn about yourself at that time? What, I guess, if there was 2 things that changed within sight of Jeremy Slate, right? Because a lot of times we think the enemy is outside, right? And a lot of times the enemy is the inner us. Mm-hmm. So what did you learn about yourself that you needed to change?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, like I learned I was a lot bigger than I thought I was, because I had this like little box that I could fit inside of, and I can only do so many things. And it made me start looking for, more things to challenge myself, bigger goals, bigger thoughts, things like that. So I really attacked a lot of those things I had kept at bay. Like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do this, and why? And it's kind of like, at that point, it's like, well, why not? So that was a really big thing as well. Another big thing was it made me look at, like, what do I really want to do? Because, I love my parents dearly, but I come from a small family in a small town where, nobody goes to college or anything like that. So like the dream was go to college.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And the dream was then go to grad school. And it's like, okay, for what? So, you kind of get out with, more degrees with it than a thermometer, and you don't know what to do with it. And for me, I was just kind of like really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And had this situation not shocked my system, I'd be on a very different path right now.
Well, yeah, because I read also that you have your master's. So what do you have your master's degree in?
Something no one's hiring for. My master's degree is in early Roman Empire propaganda. I wrote a thesis on how the Roman emperor convinced people he was God.
Did you really?
Yes.
Wow.
Not a very applicable skill in the world of doing anything productive.
So your mom has this stroke. You kind of wake up and you say, you know what, I can take on the world. I'm going to take on the world. So you had a partner. I heard about that. But how did you start off? Because I think there's a lot of people right now that lost their job. They're losing their job, but they're just in situations that they're not happy with, right? So what's one of the first 2 or 3 things you did to say, well, okay, you know what, I got to do something differently. This isn't working. And how did you start your brand at you? Because you're very well established already, but they don't see the struggles you went through, right? They don't see that. So we'll talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, man.
Well, the first thing I did was, I jumped into network marketing, which means I thought I was going to be like a multimillionaire in like 7 hours. Didn't work like that. It was, enough to kind of like teach me a lot about business that I didn't know. Cause like I said, I came from an academic world where you don't really know anything. So it was the best boot camp of business I ever had, but it was also, a huge learning experience as well. So that was the first thing I did. Then I jumped from there into life insurance sales. And, wow, that is interesting. I was good at that. I was very good at that. But after a while, I just hated sitting down with somebody feeling like a mafioso, being like, so you're going to die, right? And you love your family, right? You wouldn't want anything to happen to them, right? So, I did that for a bit, made some good money. I then moved on to private labeling and selling products on Amazon. And I left the you can get my product for $1 promo code on my listing, which means all of my products in about 20 minutes went to one address in Maryland. And if I ever find you, I will get you. So that was the end of my selling on Amazon career. And I kind of got there. I'm like, all right, strike 3, I'm out. So I ended up working at a friend's marketing firm. I had taught myself how to build websites from watching the YouTube videos and reading blog posts. So I'm building websites there. I started podcasts as a hobby. And, the first iteration didn't really go so well. Second iteration, we had 10,000 listens in our first 30 days. So I really learned a lot about how to do it the right way, man. And that's, how I got there.
Awesome, man. Well, let me ask you this, because I like to talk about confidence. Where in your journey would you say that Jeremy Slate really lost his confidence? And what did you do to regain it at that moment, man?
I was somebody that was picked on a lot in school. Like a lot. So I came from public school to private school. And the way I ended up in private school, and I actually don't think I've talked about this in the podcast. The way I ended up in private school was I'm in 2nd grade and the principal and my teacher have a meeting with my parents. And they say, this kid's out of control. He finishes his work too fast. We need him to take more time. He's, not interested in the busy work we're giving him. So he's either got to go on Ritalin or he's got to leave. My parents are like, okay, cool. He's going to private school then. Bye. They could barely afford it, but they did it because they didn't feel like it was right to start drugging your kids, which I totally agree with. So it was an adjustment period because, private school is different, man. Like if you're kind of not part of the crowd early on, it's hard to become part of the crowd. So I just never was really accepted. And because of that, I was picked on a lot all through grammar school. And after getting out of there, I kind of made this decision in high school. Okay, I'm just going to be the quiet kid, even though I was never the quiet kid, because I figured that way you can at least stay under the radar. Nobody's going to kind of mess with you. And it really wasn't until, a lot of this stuff changed in my life that I started rediscovering who I was. Because I think sometimes you do a lot of what you have to, what you do to fit in because you don't like being the nail that keeps getting hammered,
No, it's ironic you say that, because when I was actually in my book that I just released, Sticker Shock, I talk about self-worth, right? And I remember playing basketball and I was always one of the last kids picked, right? Because I was a chubby little kid. Mm-hmm. And I think I've worn the same way since I was in 5th grade or 6th grade. But I definitely can relate to that because it's there's no, how can you say it? You want to be part of the clique, right? You want to be part of the popular kids, but you're not. So, man. So what did you do to regain your confidence then, man?
It was just kind of exploring what I was interested in. You know what I mean? And because I'm a huge believer with competence comes confidence, right? Like, and if you
Yes.
get it good at something, you start to get more confident in it. So for me, the thing was fitness. And I graduated high school at like 140 pounds. By the time I was 23, I was like 215 at like 8% body fat. So I had kind of gotten my competence in first in weightlifting, which made me more confident. And you kind of find that spreads to a lot of other things you do. That confidence is very easy to build into other areas of your life once you've established it. So that was kind of the first area I did it. And then you start, you start working in your job and you get better at that and people can count on you there. And then once I got out of that, it was, I started to build my credibility in podcasting, and you get more confident in that once you develop more confidence there. So I think it's definitely a cycle. The more competent you become in something, the more confidence you have in it, because you know and understand that you can actually do and deliver something.
Well, this is the part of the show where I like to tell our audience, this is the time you get your pen and paper out. Something magical happens when you put pen to paper. Jeremy just dropped a word of wisdom right there. Boom, baby. You don't get the confidence first. You have to build the competence. And the more competent you are, that's the more confidence you have within yourself. And I love what he said, Jeremy, is it trickles over to other areas of your life. And I think that's where most people mess up. One thing and I want your input on this, it drives me crazy when you get like a young entrepreneur that you're trying to coach and guide them. And they're like, yeah, I want to do this. I'm going to do Amway. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They're doing like five different things. And it's like, no, you got to focus on one thing. And then you break out from there. Talk a little bit about that, man, because I think too many times people don't get their confidence or their competency because they're doing too much crap in too many different areas.
Well, I think that's it as well. And it's the same thing whether you start a business and you're like, oh, everybody's my client. And you're like, oh, well, good. No clients for you. When you cast a really wide net in anything, you don't concentrate on anything. And when you don't do that, you don't give yourself time to become good at anything. There's a really good book by Cal Newport called So Good They Can't Ignore You. Because I'm 33, so I think I'm like somewhere on the edge of that like millennial generation. And I think the big problem with my generation, man, is they're kind of waiting for the heavens to open up and that purpose to come down and be like, and this is what you shall do with your life. Oh. And that's not really what it's like, man. Like in his book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, Cal Newport talks about finding something you're good at. And you get better at it and better at it and better at it. And when it becomes effortless, you become passionate. And I think that's what the difference is, right? The difference is when you get really, really good at something, you get known for that thing, then you can expand out further than that, right? You can add more services. You can add more things you're doing. But when you try to be everything to everyone, man, you're nothing to no one. That's a double negative, but I think you get the idea.
Oh, I love that. Say that again, man. I want to hear that. I want them to hear that again.
So when you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one. As it's kind of a double negative, but it makes sense if you get it.
Hey, I dig it, man. No worries, bro. That's good stuff. So let me ask you this. Jeremy gets going. He's building his competence. But this is where I see most people. And this is because you have a great following on LinkedIn. And I'll never forget, like I had like all these followers on Facebook when I was in the automotive industry. And I would post one thing and boom, I got like 50, 100 likes. Like, yeah, right. Like then you go to LinkedIn and I post something and I'm like, nothing happens, dude. Like I'm like crickets, right? And I got discouraged. But I realized that I had to be consistent. And at what point did you realize, you know what, to build a competency, I need to be consistent? Give us a takeaway. Drop some words of wisdom on what you did to be consistent as far as just in life and in business, man.
It was finding one thing to stick to and like burning the boats on the way there. You know what I mean? Because I think too often, like when we give ourselves options, we're never fully committed to something, right? Because we're like, all right, well, if this doesn't work out, at least I have this. You know what I mean? So you don't fully commit. It's really dangerous to do it that way because you're fully committed to something, but you'll find better ways to make it work out. But the way to really look at it, right? And this is what happened for me is I had to find, as I said, I split up with that business partner and things didn't work out. But had I not found that business partner, I would not have made the move, right? Because I wasn't confident in my own success to do it. Yeah. I had to get somebody to make me move, see that I could do it. And then I had the confidence to do it. So sometimes you have to figure out why it is you're not moving forward and just move forward, man. Like it's better. And it's funny because my wife and I are talking the other day and she's like, the thing I really like about you, I'm like, what's that? That I'm handsome? She's like, no, that, for you, done is better than perfect, right? So many people are like, it's got to be perfect and it's got to be 1,000 pages and it's got to be esoteric and confusing and everything else. And I'm like, I don't care if 27 things are spelled wrong, man. It's out there. and I think that's one of the things you have to understand is you just got to get out there and start moving, right? And you're gonna get some negative, you're gonna get some positive, but once you get moving, you have something to build off of, and you go from there. I know it was kind of a roundabout way of getting there, but did I answer your question?
Yeah, I love what you said, because you got to start there where you're at, right? You got to start there. Wherever there is for you, that's where you start. There for Jeremy was there for Daniel was there, but you got to start there wherever you at. And I think too many people, they look at where other people are at instead of starting where they're at, and just do what the best you can do. And because I look back at some videos, dude, I was looking at I don't know what I was doing the other day, and you know how Facebook has a memory that comes up like 2 or 3 years ago? And I'm like, man, I wouldn't have hired myself either back then, right? But it was the starting point.
Hey man, you got to do something, right? Like I look at my first podcast cover art and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like you listen to those first episodes and you kind of cringe, but like, I don't know if you know Michael Marcial, but he put up a post a couple hours ago with a link from 2012 to his first YouTube channel. And he goes, don't go to this link. They're really bad. We all have those things, man. You got to start somewhere, right? Like it's never going to be pretty at first. And sometimes it's frankly cringeworthy, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing is that when you realize that there is no perfection, no matter how good you are, you're never going to reach perfection. There's always a next level to take yourself, your business, whatever you're doing, take it to another level. And I love what you said. You just got to go. So write this down, everybody. Perfection is unattainable, but progress is, right? Perfection is unattainable and progress is. That's a quote between Jeremy and Daniel Gomez, right? Because you can't be perfection. Perfection is unattainable, but progress is. So just be progressing every single day and start there where you're at and write that down, because Jeremy's dropping some wisdom right now, and you got to just, this guy is.
Because absolutes don't exist, man. Like absolutes don't exist. There's only gradients in between them. You know what I mean? Like you're never going to be the best at something, because I guarantee you there's someone else somewhere in the world that's better than you at something and you don't know about it. You know what I mean? So it's like there's always going to be gradients. There's never absolutes.
Yeah, man. You know what? You're right. There's no absolutes. What makes Jeremy Slate distinctive, man? What makes like Jeremy Slate, like, of course you have a uniqueness, but what makes him distinctive?
I don't know. I feel like I'm a combination of a bunch of things that don't really agree with themselves. Like I'm a former competitive powerlifter. I'm a super nerd that studied at Oxford, and I love podcasts. So I don't know what really makes me distinctive. Maybe it's owning a pig. I don't know. Maybe that's what makes me distinctive.
No, there's some. I got to tell you, I admire you because you're doing some fabulous things, man. I'm just being totally honest. You know, think about what you said. Most people can't even get accepted to Oxford, so that's distinctive within itself. But
you know what? If you're going to say this, if I had to say one thing that's distinctive about me, is I have an ability to decide I'm going to do something, and come hell or high water, I will figure out a way to get it done. I'm crazy enough to believe everything I say. So you know what I mean? I would say that's distinctive. I'm crazy enough to believe every single thing that comes out of my mouth. That's why I could never run for political office.
I love that, man. And it's true, right? Sometimes you need to be a little bit crazy to succeed.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take any risk, how are you going to be successful? I think too many young podcasters, entrepreneurs come out and they see like where Jeremy is, and they see where Grant Cardone is, and they see where Evan Carmichael and all these top people, and they're like, man, I want to be like them, but they don't want to take the risk. They don't want to burn the ships, like you just said. Yeah. And they think it's going to come at no cost. But that's one thing that I always, when I speak, I teach it. I just taught this in my conference, because we just had 23 speakers come in from all over the country. And I talked to them about having a speaker's mindset. And they go, what is that? I'm like, well, yeah, speakers fail because they don't see it as a business. They just want to speak. I go, no, you got to like, hey, this is going to be a business. And they leave that 9-to-5 job where they want to leave that 9-to-5 job. And then they get here where me and you are at. But they still have that employee mindset.
That's any business though, man. Because like that's one of the things I love about speaking to musicians, right? The musicians that I have spoken to that have done some incredible things are the one that realize you have to figure out how to make money off this thing. And that's the part people don't really get, is exactly what you're talking about. The nuts and bolts, man. You got to understand where your revenue comes from. You got to understand how you get more of it. You got to understand how you get in front of more people. And if you can't sell, just quit now. Like, it's not even worth it. Like, if you're not going to commit to getting better at selling, you're not going to be good at anything you do, because no matter what, I don't care if you're a kid trying to convince your parents you want to do something, you got to sell something, man.
Yes. And I couldn't agree with you. I think we both have that sales background. Write that down, audience. What Jeremy just said, if you don't sell, you're not going to succeed. It doesn't matter what you're selling. You could be selling grapefruits on the corner here, and you're not going to succeed because you got to sell. And this is one thing. Would you say what is the most important product they buy before they buy anything from you, Jeremy?
If they don't buy that handsome face of Daniel Gomez staring right back at you, man, they ain't going to buy anything you're saying on stage. They got to buy you, man. Your brand and who you are and, your ability to be trusted is huge. And if you don't have any of that, man, it's all over.
Yes, I love that, man. You're dropping some boom here, man. That's awesome, brother. I like that. So let me ask you this. What does Jeremy Slate stand for? Like, what are some of your convictions?
So I'm a huge person against drugs. Like one of the big things that we have a problem with here in Northwest New Jersey is heroin. The major highway that goes through this area, they call the heroin highway. So my wife and I go into schools and talk to kids. We run the Drug Free World Gala every year out in Long Island. So we care a lot about, keeping kids off drugs and, keeping this to be a better place. So that's a major, major tenet for me. The other thing is family is huge. Family is a really, really important thing to me. And I kind of put that before everything else we're doing. And that's why, when I have something for work, we figure out how the family can come. We all had an awesome European vacation last year when I had a keynote in Kiev. So we found out how we could kind of go all across Europe. It was kind of like, European vacation, except no Chevy Chase or anything like that. So for me, those things are really important. The other thing for me is always making sure that I'm able to, I guess, stoke my own curiosity, right? And that's whether the interviews that I'm doing interest me, that's what I'm doing for work interests me, because when you're curious and interested in something, you're going to create some amazing results. When you're not, and when it becomes bland and when it lacks your interest, you're not going to do what it takes to make something work.
Yeah. I was just talking about that with my son because I was telling him, we were talking about something. And I just said, no, I said, man, too many people get comfortable too much, too quickly. And the thing is, when you get complacent, when you become too familiar with your surroundings, you never challenge yourself. And he's a power lifter like you. He's like, the gyms are, we just moved. He's about 10 minutes away. Well, he's been doing high reps, right? He goes, Dad, it's not challenging me, right? It's not challenging me.
Dude, I was doing the body weight stuff and I'm like on 1,000 reps and I'm like, wow, this is really boring.
Well, check it out. We went online to buy, because there's no weights at Academy. There's no weights anywhere. We went online to buy some. Usually you can buy it for $1 a pound. Right now it's like $3 a pound for cement weights. I was like, son, you better do high reps.
Well, here's the thing. So my gym's open again, even though all the gyms in the state are closed, because there's this loophole in the way businesses are organized that if you reorganize your company as a PMA, or what's called a private membership association, the government can't shut you down. So my gym's the only one in the state open. It's incredible. I've been working out for a month.
Awesome, man. That's good stuff. So you go speak to these kids. I'm saying this because I never forget, I went and spoke at this school. Yeah. And I had never talked about suicide before, Jeremy. Never. I myself, I tried to commit suicide when I was 18 years old. And it's like God just touched my heart at that moment. And it just came out of left field, right? And I just talked about me trying to take my life. And I said, I want you to know, I want every student to know you matter. And afterwards, this young girl came up and when she was just crying in tears, she goes, you just saved my life. I was really thinking about committing suicide. And I'll never forget her. That day my wife was with me. The counselors were there. So I asked the counselor, hey, is it cool if my wife gives her a hug? And it was good because you could tell it really impacted her. What's one of the biggest transformations you've seen just going into and talking about drugs and heroin to these? Because, dude, you speak from your heart.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to the biggest thing. And you could see this, whether it's going into schools and talking to kids, but you could see this anywhere, right? There becomes this apathy about life because there's two things happen. Either they have no dreams, or somewhere along the line, someone told them those dreams aren't possible and they stop believing. And that is the single biggest thing I see. If you can rekindle someone's dreams, their ability to think big and their ability to realize there's a future there and there's something more for them, you can change a lot of stuff. Because you know what? I've talked to a lot of professional athletes that grew up in slums and grew up in inner cities and all this kind of stuff, but they knew their dreams were possible. They knew they could make their dreams happen, or there was somebody that reminded them they could make their dreams happen. So that's the biggest thing, man, is this just this apathy about existence. When somebody doesn't have dreams, they're not physically dead, but they're spiritually and emotionally dead. And that's kind of what you're dealing with when you see any of this stuff.
They're just surviving, right? They're just kind of
Yeah.
floating through life and letting life live them and tell them where to go.
If there's no reason to be doing it, if there's nothing to exist for, then what's the freaking point? That's why dreams are so important. And that's why your goals are so important.
So let me ask you this. I just did a live video actually on last week, and we just moved into our new home, and it was a stretch. And I went back and I saw this letter I wrote myself about 2 years ago where I kind of talked about, I was describing my dream house, and little did I know, dude, like we moved into it. Why do you think people don't dream big enough, Jeremy?
Because number one, I'm trying to think of how to put this, is, the media tells them it's not possible. People they grew up with tell them it's not possible. Other people tell them it's not possible. You know what the funniest thing about that is, Daniel? Do you know why they tell you it's not possible? You know why?
Tell me.
Because if you do it, then their life sucks. So they have to hold you down and show you it's not possible because they'll be embarrassed and feel like they're worthless. So that's the thing that you really have to understand, is that people that are telling other people it's not possible are scared of that they're going to have to grow. They're going to have to do something differently. They're going to have to change. And you can't let that hold you back, man. That is the biggest single reason why there's people that tell you it's not possible. It's the single biggest reason why other people don't reach, because there's people telling them it's not possible all the time, right? Like, oh, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Oh, don't take that risk. Something may happen to you. Yeah, but you could win huge, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you go all in at the poker table, it's a scary thing, but you know what? You can win big. And I think that's what you really have to think about. Like there's risks to life. There's risks to everything. But if you don't take them, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I remember.
You got me fired up today, man.
Yeah, I'm fucked up, dude. And you know what I'm thinking about is
I don't usually talk like this, man. You got me fired up.
Oh, baby, woo! Let's do this. But you're talking about what you just said. I want people to put this in your anchor. Anytime you go to Ghost Crab Shack now, or you see a crab, I want you to think of Jeremy Slate. This is the anchor. It's the crab syndrome, right? You can put one crab in a bucket, and that crab will not try to get out, right? It'll stay there. But they'll get out. But if you put two crabs in a bucket, the other crab will pull the other crab back. It won't let it leave. And what you're saying is the crab syndrome is one crab can get out, but when you surround it with crabs that like don't want you to get out, they keep pulling you back, and you're almost out. They pull you back in the bucket. You're almost out. You pull them back in the bucket. And this is what the thing is. And what I'm thinking about right now is we just had our speaking academy, and this one guy really broke down in tears. He goes, I said, what's wrong? He goes, you know what I realized? I'm a lot closer to success than I think, Danny.
Yep.
And most people are there. Talk about that, brother. Come on, man. I want to hear that wisdom you got, man.
Yeah, man.
Talk about that. Like, why like people, I told him, dude, you're 3 feet from gold. Don't give up right now. He goes, I realized that. And the biggest compliment that we got about the whole conference, right? It was just being around 25 other like-minded people, and the energy was like, man, like everybody fed off each other's confidence and competency. Talk about that. Like, why do people think they're a lot further than they think they are?
Well, because, once again, it goes back to what we've been saying. Like, we're told billionaires are bad and they have money and they shouldn't have money. We should give that money to other people. Well, screw that. We're told like it's not good to achieve, right? Like everybody gets a stupid trophy in T-ball. It's like, why? So like we're kind of told that there's nothing to reach for and it's bad when you win and all this kind of stuff. You have to kind of make this decision that you're going to start, if you're going to be crazy and start believing everything you say, like I do, you start surrounding yourself with people that agree with that and people that support you and people that bring you up and people that tell you, hey, that's crazy. Let's think bigger. That's even crazier. Like you kind of need to start surrounding yourself with people like that and realize that there's going to be, there's only about 20% of people that are really bad. And that's fine. There's a lot of other people that they're just scared, and that's fine. You have to understand like where they're coming from. Like my parents were scared for me when I first started. My parents love me and they're great people, but they didn't know that, I could do, what we've done. And once you prove that, they come around and they're supportive. So you have to understand like who you're dealing with, right? Start surrounding yourself with better people. Don't invalidate others because they don't agree with you. Now, if they're really nasty about it, then just cut them off. That's the way it is.
I like that, man. Don't invalidate others. So, right. So I think that's what's one thing that people, it's not that you're better than them. It's just that you're on a different path now, and it's okay. You're going to come to that why. And I'm glad you brought that up because I want my audience to realize that your journey is your journey. What Jeremy is saying is that you got to surround people that are going to support you and lift you up and edify you. And those people that don't agree with your dream, like myself, man, I lost some close friends, right? When I said I'm going to be a motivational speaker, dude, everybody thought I was crazy. They're like, you're Mexican. You know how many Mexican motivational speakers there are? They're like, Daniel, there's hardly any. I'm like, well, that's just something that God put in my heart. And I realized that the hardest thing was there was 6 months of loneliness, man. And I'll be honest with you, that was 6 months of loneliness. And I think I have this quote that I always go and tell entrepreneurs. It's like, I remember being in a restroom crying, and I was 99.9% sure that I was going to quit, give up, and go back into the car business. But I didn't. And you have to reach that point before you can really be successful. Because at that moment, I said, whatever it costs, I'm going to do it. And I didn't realize at that moment when I said that, there was some people that I had to not cut them off completely, but just push them towards the outer circle. And it hurts, man. And I think
it absolutely does.
Most people don't want to do that. What do you think?
I think it's hard because I know for me, was the hardest thing was my best friend when I first got into network marketing was my cousin. He was the person I was closest with. We did everything together. And all I wanted him to do was look at what I was doing. If he didn't do it, that's fine with me. I just want to look at it and say, hey, that's cool, man. Good luck. So it started getting weird. He was ignoring me and stuff like that. And then one day we're finally out, and on our way out of the restaurant, I look at him and go, hey, man, I know what's going on here. This is because of my business. He looks at me and he goes, you're not running a business. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to see you fail. And that was 2013. I haven't spoken to him since. So you know what I mean? You got to kind of realize who's got evil intentions for you. And when I looked at it, that was the same guy that said, oh, don't play football, you're going to get hurt. Or don't play baseball, you're not any good at it. Or, stop working out, you're going to be a wheelchair at 30. And then once you'll start to see a pattern once you start to see how did I receive and feel about that communication? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think one thing that I realized is people are like, yeah, go for it, Daniel, right? And then they see that you're serious about it. And then I believe that people will support you up to their level of success. And then once you pass up their level of success, whatever that may be in their eyes or your eyes, they stop supporting you. And they don't give you they don't celebrate your wins and victories, man. And I think you're 100% right on that. So let me ask you this, man. What is next for Jeremy Slate?
I want to become the go-to in the podcast industry, man. I want to become the name you think of. And when it comes to podcasts, when it comes to, interviewing and speaking to incredible people, I want to be that guy, man.
So on your show, name your top 2 people you never thought you'd get on there. I want to say, I might be wrong on this, but I want to say, I heard your story about getting Grant Cardone on there. I don't know if he was one of them, but who are the top 2 people you're like, oh shit, they're on my show now?
So Grant Cardone was really awesome, and he was definitely one of the people I wanted to get on. But one of the ones I had on 2 weeks ago, man, he used to finish every commercial with "Stay thirsty, my friends." I had the Dos Equis guy on, which was incredibly cool. I had my favorite football player on, AJ Hawk, that used to play middle linebacker for the Packers. So that was kind of cool. So I've gotten to talk to a lot of incredible people, man. It's so hard to just pick one.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, let me ask you this. I like to end the show with, what is a quote or a word of wisdom you can share with our audience that's carried you or that still carries you during difficult times when you hit that brick wall? What's a saying that you lean back on, man? And what's your go-to?
It's I don't really if I have a thing that I lean on. It's more or less, I know sometimes it's going to take more than any other time, but you're going to get through it, right? This too shall pass. So that's kind of something I've always been able to push through things. Maybe you're kind of in the quicksand swimming around a little bit, but you figure a way out. And I think that's been it for me, man. I'm very resourceful, and I'll figure a way out. So you hear that, audience? Be resourceful, and this too shall pass. The storm always ends, and there's always a rainbow at the end. Jeremy, man, you've been an epic guest, man. How do we find you? How does somebody find Jeremy Slate? If they want to connect with you, where do they go, and what's the action they tend to connect with you, bro? Well, if they want to check out anything on the personal brand side, that includes the podcast, it's over at jeremyryanslate.com. Or if they're interested in figuring out how they can become a guest on Top Rated Podcasts, and you're like, damn, why haven't I gotten scheduled on the podcast I want? They can go over to commandyourbrand.com/7 reasons, and they'll find out the 7 reasons why they're not getting booked on their favorite podcast. And the number 7 or the word 7 will work for that. Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you love the information you heard today, just this episode, I would like to invite you out to join our Distinctive Syndicate group here on Facebook.
we would love for you to join us. Just send us a request to join. We'd love to add you as part of the community. It's more inspiration, more business stuff, more just edification, and just reach out to us. That's a wrap for this week's episode. We'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to DanielGomezInspires.com and get your copy today. That's DanielGomezInspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.